Okay, we're going to talk about some of the other, on-camera work, other acting work that you've got going on. But I wanted to take a break here for a second and talk about this incredible gift that you sent me. This is a book that you are a part of with your brother. Yeah. It's the Dungeons & Dragons Art and Arcana of Visual History. And there's two other guys, Kyle Newman and John Peterson, and your brother is Michael Witwer. Yeah. This thing is incredible.
It's got, like, if you strike someone in the back of the head, it's 1d8 damage, I believe.
You can kill somebody with this book, but you can also kill somebody with the amount of information you glean from this book. Yeah. Which I have to admit, and we were talking about this on we were texting. I'm not a huge D&D fan, mostly because I haven't made the time in my life to do it. But I love the lore building and the art and. I love the community aspect of it, like getting together with friends and doing this. Like I did play some D&D when I was really young, and I can't wait to get my kid into it. This book seems impossible to me, though. This seems like 20 years of work right here.
This wasn't easy. We had sort of a super team, right? Yeah. Kyle Newman identified that there's a zeitgeist moment happening for D&D, and in fact, he identified it right before it really started happening for like Critical Role and stuff like that. And he said, we got to get together, and he said, let's do an art book. And his idea was, there's so much D&D art. People have never seen it in its native form. Let's go see it.
Yeah.
But
show that camera right there, one of your favorite pages.
I'm trying to find something.
There's so much beautiful stuff. Dragons and, of course, orcs.
Let's talk about Beholders, which is like one of the most iconic, if I can find, I think I just paged through it. But here we go. But the idea that there's all these, when we started talking about the art book, we started hitting on this idea that there are all these D&D fans. By the way, recent data suggests 40% women.
Right.
So all these new D&D fans who don't have any knowledge of the history of this game that they love so much.
Yes.
Yet there are no casual D&D fans. You need to have some depth of knowledge to even play the game.
Right,
so we're like, we should tell that story.
Absolutely.
So like, if you look at this is sort of the evolution of the Beholder.
Hold it to that one, Blake. We'll cut to that one right there.
The evolution of the Beholder. Like, you can see where the Beholder was back in 1975 up in the upper left-hand corner, and then you can see where it evolved in 1977 and so on and so forth. And you can watch, as you flip through this book, it's meant to be kind of a time machine, a visual history. It was no longer an art book. I mean, it's an art book.
Yes.
But we added a lot of text to really take you through how this all evolved from this guy.
Which I really, really love and appreciate, because it's like encyclopedic in that way. Like it's going to give me information that I will share with my kid, and then I'm sure we're going to go out and pick up, I don't know, I'll ask you which one to get, but one of the quotes that I saw in here, because obviously you heard from Gary Gygax and some of his friends and some
Dave Arneson and
but Gary Gygax had a comment around the movie time frame. He said there was absolutely nothing special about the movie, including the special effects, which were terrible.
We're talking about the one with Jeremy Irons?
Yeah, I think so. He's talking about the Dungeons and Dragons movie in 1999. So I just thought that kind of stood out to me. But
just go and see it, guys. Go on Amazon and buy it tonight.
Oh boy, really was blown away. There's lots of video game stuff in here. There's lots of advertisements throughout the ages. And incredible.
The whole thing is, it's been a hell of a ride, and we've felt that there was a real opportunity to let people know that this was a do-it-yourself project in a guy's basement. I mean, they assembled these little wood grain boxes and mailed them off themselves, and that grew into Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, which is, whether you know about it or not, is a cornerstone of geek culture.
Yeah.
Well, not even geek culture, of everything. For example, take the game Doom, which is like the first legit, hardcore, successful first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Those guys who developed Wolfenstein and Doom cite D&D as one of the major influences of getting into gaming to begin with.
100%.
So if you don't have D&D,
then
you don't have Doom, then you don't have first-person shooters.
Dude, I can't tell you.
Think about. I mean, George R.R. Martin cites D&D as like a big influence for Game of Thrones. And anytime that someone says, "Hey, man, you leveled up on your so-and-so skill," that's a D&D reference, even though you don't know it.
Yeah. Well, I'd visit game studios, and no matter what they were playing, there was mad respect for pen and paper, and everybody was citing that as some of the design kind of ethos that they would have and take and put into their video game content.
And there's, by the way, speaking of Star Wars, there's a picture of because D&D grew out of, it was a bunch of war gamers who, going back to H.G. Wells' Little Wars and people who would have these immense Napoleonic army metal figures where they would lay them out and reenact historical battles. And that was what they would do. They would reenact them, and they try to make it as historically accurate as possible. They try to have a rule set that made it historically accurate. And then Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson were like, what if we put orcs in there?
They must have been
what if we put
Tolkien fans, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all feeding
there
into
were.
each other.
Gygax was a Robert E. Howard guy.
Okay, cool.
Very Conan.
Yeah.
It's right, It's like, screw it, Tolkien, and the Arabs have screw it.
I
We're
want
gonna
that
get in
King
there.
Conan movie, don't you?
Oh,
I want him to do it one more time, right?
Come on, let's do it.
Yes,
do
let's
it
do
now.
it.
Yeah, kill me.
It's so much fun.
But anyway, so it evolved into this game where you were not commanding armies, where every little metal piece represented one character, your character, and then eventually this even became optional. Maybe you don't use a metal piece. Maybe it's all spoken word, and it became this incredible storytelling thing.
And no wonder actors love it too,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You get to perform the whole thing, and if you've got a good dungeon master, you're in for a treat.
Jon Favreau, the guy who's Dave Filoni's one and only boss on The Mandalorian. Those two guys are making The Mandalorian for you, and Jon Favreau has recently said, he's like, a few years ago I wouldn't. I'm botching his quote, but he said a few years ago I wouldn't admit it, but D&D was a huge influence on my storytelling skills.
That's great.
Playing that game.
That's awesome.
So here it is. Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and all the people that worked on these games, including like the 14-year-old Tracy Lesh high school student who made some of the first illustrations, stuff like that. These are like the grandparents of giant chunks of pop culture. They're like the most famous people you never heard of.
That's awesome.
So that's why we wanted to make them.
And there's a foreword from Joe Manganiello. Mm-hmm. How does that? I butchered his name. How do you say his last name? Manganiello.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
I barely know my name, and I don't know who you are.
Okay.
So let's.
All right.
No. Joe is a huge. He's a huge D&D guy, and he's so warm-hearted, and he definitely helped us in any way he could.
That's great.
In terms of getting the word out.
One thing I learned is that in 2012 and 2013 there was like a reboot, a drive to go back to the roots of Dungeons and Dragons.
They played so they arrived on something. The rules had always shifted and they'd evolved. And they evolved to a point where, honestly, if you were a certain type of gamer, they were really fun.
Yeah.
And if you were every other type of gamer, no.
Yeah.
It was called 4th edition. And again, worked for some people. I honestly will say I don't think it was bad, but it was specific.
Right.
And D&D should be agnostic, inclusive. It should be like play it.
Video games have that same thing too, right?
Right. It should, the D&D should be all about freedom, all about storytelling, all about play it the way you and your friends want to play it.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing, sort of what we did, kind of, they went back with their development team and played every version of the rules in research for how to remake the game.
Wow.
Including the, ruddy little, hand assembled box set with these little, like, essentially photocopied pamphlets.
Yeah.
And they basically were able to distill down what is the heart of D&D, what is the beating heart of that game, what makes it work. And then they designed the newest edition of the rules, the 5th edition, which is, in my very serious estimation, the best version of D&D that we have ever had, including the originals, which are like near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
I go way back to the early 80s with the game. But like 5th edition, the final version, the one that you can go out and buy right now, and the one that they've been selling, for like 8 years now, 9 or something like that?
Yeah.
There's a reason they haven't changed the rules since they hit on that, because they got it right.
That's awesome.
And it was such a, so that's another thing that helps this sort of zeitgeist moment of D&D.
Yeah.
Not only YouTube, because if when people used to say, how do you play D&D? It's hard to describe how to play it, but it's easy to demonstrate.
Yes.
So now people can just go up on YouTube and say, how do you play D&D? And watch it and go, oh, I get it, I can do that.
And it's such like the antidote to the digital life that we're all in, right?
Yeah.
It is like you have
Social.
to get together, and it's an analog experience.
Yeah.
So.
And, but also you can play it online if you want to get, there are Skype things where you can get them all lined up. There's a million ways to play the game.
Do you do that when you're on the road? Because you're shooting everywhere.
My friends are scattered across the globe, so yes, we do actually do that sometimes.
That's great.
But the whole key is, everything had to line up. Like, the geeks that grew up with it had to inherit Hollywood, which they did.
Yes.
YouTube,
Clearly.
YouTube had to be a thing. Matt Mercer and his crew had to do their thing. And and they had to get the rules right.
Yeah.
The game had to be good.
Yeah.
All of those things happened at once.
That's great.
Which allowed us to put this book out.
Hugo Award winning book.
Award nominee. We haven't found out if we've won, but we're going to go to Dublin
in the current Hugo Awards, which are when?
Which are August.
You'll find out if. And so this book came out last year, then?
Yeah.
Or in the last year?
Or really not at the end of last year. I think.
Congratulations, that's amazing. And how did you guys divvy up because there's a lot of obviously art in this, but you have a lot of text in there. How did you divvy up the writing element?
Well, we each kind of carved out a fourth of the book, but then we also touched everyone else's sections.
So
we all got together. We all edited it together. And then I want to really credit, everyone, my brother, Michael Witwer, was like the project lead. He was the general who would call me up. My little brother, by the way.
Yeah.
He's like, get this done, get that done, write this and do that, and get it all done by Monday. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's my little brother. And I'm like, look at this. He's grown up.
Like that?
No.
Okay.
I'm the boss. Yeah. But no, he's become the boss. And then Kyle Newman is the visual guy.
Yes.
He's a director. So we had a really great visual sense. Kyle would obsess over details that were like, I don't care, Kyle. But then you would see what he would do with it, and you're like, oh, that's better. Thank God you're here.
Yeah.
And then John Peterson is like the Indiana Jones of D&D history.
Yes.
So he was the one that was traveling the globe, finding some of these old, because these pieces, it's not like they were all in an archive.
Yeah.
They've been spread out throughout the globe, and he had to locate, track down, and I think some people died.
Yeah.
But it's fun. We don't talk about
It's the Indiana Jones adventure.
Indiana Jones, look, what happens when Indiana Jones, here's the lesson, guys. When Indiana Jones looks at something that you have and goes, that belongs in a museum, just give it to him.
Yeah. Because
otherwise you're going to die.
Yes.
And anyone that's with you trying to help you is also going to die. That belongs in a museum.
I have the art of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and so both of these books came at the same time, and it's great. And I love Spider-Verse. Have you seen that movie?
Dude, I'm so behind on everything because I've just been
you've been working like a dog. You got to see the movie. It's amazing. But the art book pales in comparison to this. And it doesn't have all of the scripted stuff. It doesn't, or the texted stuff. It doesn't give you all of the info.
Crush them.
It won't win a Hugo Award, even though it's good.